Okay, so this particular batch turned out horribly, but stick around to the end and you'll get to see how weird it is. So basically, I could tell right from the start that it didn't feel right. And it's very crumbly, as you can see. Super hard. But I decided to keep going because, hey, you know, it's a test batch. It'll make for an interesting video and maybe it'll explain a problem that somebody else was having. So here we go. Uncuttable soap. So at this point I was kind of scratching my head thinking, well, I've never put bergamot and lime together. And both of those essential oils make the bar a little harder. So maybe it had something to do with that. So I'm like, I know, I'll put it in the oven and heat it up and then I'll be able to cut it. Started out at 170, ended up bumping it up to 200, and then I could cut it. It actually cut pretty good, though it was still surprisingly firm. I had to tighten the wires a couple of times. I was kind of surprised that I actually got 10 bars that were the appropriate size out of this batch. My mold was supposed to be able to do that. However, the plastic normally goes into the ends a little bit too far to get the 10th bar. I would like to try one of those silicone lined molds. Never tried one of those, I've always just done it this way. If any of you guys have the silicone molds and use them regularly, let me know what you think about them in the comment below. So the first thing that kind of made me scratch my head, well, I guess it would be the second thing, the hardness, and then the fact that they didn't lose very much weight in the food dehydrator for a day and a half. And I never did find their melting temperature because, like I said, I took them up to 200 degrees in the oven and could barely cut them. So they didn't lose all that much weight overall. And it looks like some of them didn't lose like any weight. The next thing is they were so brittle I still couldn't stamp them even at higher temperatures. Which I don't really encounter that like hardly ever. So I was really scratching my head at this point. Going, well, just continue with the tests. I'm sure I'll figure out what the heck happened. Look at how brittle that is. I'm just getting some ideas, but don't really know for sure yet. The lather on this is not great, but neither is the lather on the one that we make for the guy. So I was like, yeah, it's not really a big clue there. The pH is what got me. The pH of a bar is supposed to be between 7 and 10 at this point. This one's pH, however, was, gosh, it was somewhere around a 12, maybe a 13. I was like, what the heck could have made that happen? So I got thinking about it and I realized there's a couple of things that could have gone wrong. For one, when I went down to the soap room to measure out the lye, instead of using our small scale down there, that's more accurate for small amounts, I used the big one. I'm so smart. And the big one, well, it's just not as accurate for small quantities. It can be like a ½ ounce or an ounce off sometimes. It's also not really responsive unless you're using like a heavier amount. So it's really good for making large batches that, you know, weigh 30 plus pounds, but for making a batch this size, not so much. And I forgot to test the weights of everything on the small scale I have in the kitchen. So I think what happened is that I measured everything out with the wrong scale. And I ended up with too much lye in the batch. And when you end up with too much lye in the batch, you end up with exactly what I got, which is a hard, brittle bar, doesn't lose a lot of moisture, and has a really high pH. So it makes sense. Because it's basically the reverse of having too much superfats. A superfat is when you have unsaponified oil in the soap. which is actually good to have some of that. It's beneficial to the soap. But too much, and it becomes a problem. It's when you have too much lye, same thing, just in reverse. You get too much lye, you don't have any oil left in the soap unsaponified, and you can end up with lye left over. And just to prove here that it's not the recipe's fault, because this is actually the same recipe, except instead of breaking down the goat milk and splitting it with water, it's just all goat milk. This is the batch that I make for the guy with the same recipe. And it's where it's supposed to be. It's like 8 to 9. Sorry the camera doesn't pick up the accurate color of the test strip. It's just, I don't get it. So anyway, here's some nerdy soap stats on what it should be. Hope you like the video. Like and subscribe.